The dream of limitless energy is fueling a secret war among the world's most brilliant minds. This is the high-stakes race to build a perpetual motion drive, and beneath the surface of scientific progress, a labyrinth of fierce rivalries dictates who wins and who fails. You will learn the untold stories of corporate espionage, academic feuds, and personal vendettas that are secretly shaping this technological revolution. We will uncover why a terabyte of research data vanished overnight and how a public feud between a debunker and an online cult is influencing billions in funding. What hidden conflict do you believe drives innovation forward the most? This fundamental schism transformed abstract theory into a high-stakes corporate battleground. The old guard found its champion in Dr. Aris Thorne, a Nobel laureate whose voice carries immense weight in academic circles and, just as importantly, in the boardrooms of venture capital firms. He does not merely disagree with the visionaries, he condemns their work with the fervor of a high priest protecting sacred doctrine, labeling it scientific heresy. When Aris Thorne speaks, funding committees listen, and his critiques have single-handedly redirected millions of dollars away from radical projects, reinforcing the walls of conventional physics. His opposition is not born of malice, but from a rigid belief that these pursuits waste precious resources on a proven impossibility. Against this formidable institution stands Ilara Vance. She is not a tenured professor but a renegade, an independent physicist whose controversial papers on harnessing quantum fluctuations were initially mocked and dismissed. Yet her ideas refused to die. Instead, they ignited a movement, a grassroots network of researchers and engineers who believe the key to limitless energy lies not in breaking the laws of physics, but in understanding them more deeply than ever before. Ilara argues that classical thermodynamics describes the world we see, but that the subatomic realm operates on a different set of rules, a frontier we are only just beginning to map. The tension between these two figures is more than a personal dispute. It is a war for the very soul of progress. This ideological battle naturally spilled over into the corporate world, where the stakes became undeniably financial. While the academic debate raged, a far more ruthless conflict unfolded behind closed doors. In the gleaming skyscrapers of Silicon Valley and the secretive research and development labs of Europe, a corporate war rages in utter silence. Two giants, Ether Dynamics and Omnicore Technologies, are locked in a multi-billion-dollar duel for the ultimate prize. Ether champions Project Icarus, a daring attempt to create a stable energy field by manipulating gravity waves. Their rival, Omnicore, counters with the Helios Initiative, a massive undertaking focused on harnessing zero-point energy from the quantum vacuum. This rivalry long ago escalated beyond legal patent filings and into the shadowy realm of industrial espionage. The stories sound like fiction, whispered in hushed tones at industry conferences. There are persistent rumors of stolen prototype blueprints, of lead engineers being poached with astronomical salaries and promises of limitless resources, only to have their research priorities mysteriously shift. Sophisticated cyber attacks designed to look like random server failures have repeatedly crippled competitor simulations at critical moments. But one event stands out, an incident so brazen it has its own name in intelligence circles, the Geneva data heist. In a facility supposedly secured with the world's most advanced digital and physical protections, an entire server bank dedicated to magnetic containment field research went offline for exactly 14 minutes. When systems were restored, terabytes of experimental data, the culmination of nearly a decade of work, had vanished without a trace. No digital footprints were left, no forced entry was detected. The loss set the Omnicore program back by years, a devastating blow from which they are still recovering. This cutthroat competition reveals a hard truth. The quest for infinite energy is as much about securing global market dominance and unimaginable wealth as it is about pure scientific breakthrough. Yet while these corporate titans fight their secret war, a very public and equally vicious battle is being waged for the most valuable resource of all, the public's belief. While corporate secrets are stolen in silence, a very different war is fought in the blinding light of the public arena. Dr. Lena Petrova has become a household name by wielding the scalpel of scientific skepticism. With a charismatic blend of wit and uncompromising data, she dissects what she openly labels perpetual motion scams for her millions of followers. Her primary antagonist is not a single corporation, but a sprawling digital movement known as the Cult of Overunity, led by the mysterious and charismatic figure who calls himself Prometheus. This is a battle fought with viral videos and live-streamed debates, where scientific proof collides with powerful emotional narratives. Petrova will take a publicly released video of a prototype device and, frame by frame, demonstrate where the hidden power source must be or how the data is being manipulated. She presents her findings with the cool precision of a courtroom prosecutor. Prometheus never shows his face, using only a digitally altered voice, but his counterattacks are masterclasses in persuasion. He does not try to win on technicalities. Instead, he shares heartfelt testimonials from so-called early adopters, ordinary people who claim his group's leaked schematics have powered their homes for months. He speaks of liberation from energy corporations and accuses Petrova of being a pawn of the very establishment that wants to keep humanity in chains. This public spectacle has real-world consequences that ripple far beyond social media comments. The intense visibility directly shapes where venture capitalists feel safe placing their bets. A devastating takedown video from Petrova can evaporate funding for a startup overnight. Meanwhile, a viral campaign from the cult can generate enough public pressure to force regulatory bodies to issue statements, muddying the waters for legitimate researchers who now struggle to be heard above the noise. For every genuine innovator, there is the constant fear of being mistakenly associated with a fringe group, or, just as damaging, being targeted by one. This chaotic public battlefield, however, is just one side of the coin. A far more subtle and insidious conflict brews behind the ivy-covered walls of the world's most prestigious universities, where the weapons are not likes and shares but prestige and publication. The bitterness of public debate finds its mirror image in the quiet, hallowed halls of academia, where a different kind of war is waged with polished smiles and carefully worded critiques. Here, the rivalry between MIT's Quantum Engineering Lab and Stanford's Applied Metaphysics Department is the stuff of legend, a clash of scientific cultures as stark as it is personal. On one side, MIT champions a philosophy of extreme material science. Their researchers believe the answer lies in perfecting the physical world, developing frictionless bearings so efficient they almost defy reality, and chasing the holy grail of room temperature superconductors. They are the master craftsmen, convinced that perpetual motion will be built, piece by perfect piece, from tangible materials we can see and touch. Across the country, Stanford's team operates on an entirely different plane. Their Applied Metaphysics department delves into the profoundly speculative, exploring the strange forces within Casimir cavities and the theoretical possibility of manipulating space-time itself. They are the radical thinkers, arguing that the solution requires not just better engineering, but a fundamental rewrite of how we interact with the fabric of the universe. This is not merely an intellectual disagreement. It is a high-stakes race for glory, fueled by competition for prestigious grants like the Horizon Foundation's annual prize, a multi-million-dollar award that can make or break a research program for a decade. The ultimate goal for both teams is to publish the landmark paper first, the one that will cement their approach in the history books and relegate the other to a footnote. This pressure cooker environment has, on occasion, boiled over into outright sabotage. The story whispered at every major physics conference involves a young Stanford postdoc who was allegedly caught attempting to introduce a contaminant into the liquid helium supply for an MIT rival's cryogenics experiment. The official report called it a procedural misunderstanding, but everyone in the field knows the truth. This academic arms race, for all its prestige, pushes brilliant minds to the brink. The relentless pressure to win has driven some desperate researchers to seek out unconventional, and sometimes dangerously secretive, partnerships far from the safety of the university campus. The pressure to publish first has pushed some academics into a dangerous new arena, where the funders wear uniforms instead of lab coats. Beneath the public rivalries and corporate espionage lies the most secretive conflict of all, a shadow war fought with black budgets and anonymous security clearances. The immense strategic value of a perpetual motion drive has not gone unnoticed by the world's most powerful militaries. In the United States, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, runs its own highly classified initiative known as Project Chimera. Funded by a budget with no public oversight, its researchers operate in total isolation, shielded from the pressures of profit or publication. Their goal is not to power cities, but to create an insurmountable battlefield advantage, from silent, indefinitely loitering aircraft to ships that could circle the globe without refueling. Challenging this government monopoly is the private defense sector, led by corporations like Kronos Armaments. They envision a future where energy dominance is the ultimate weapon, and they are building it behind fences guarded by private armies. Their research facilities are legends in themselves, rumored to be deep underground or on remote, privately owned islands, places where the word oversight has no meaning. This is a Cold War between two forms of immense power, one state-sponsored and one corporate, and the conflict is fought with aggressive recruitment. Whistleblowers from both sides tell stories of top engineers being approached with offers they could not refuse, their previous careers mysteriously vanishing from public records. The central, chilling question that haunts this quiet struggle is not just who will build the device, but what they will turn it into. A limitless power source could, in theory, energize a city or power a weapon of unimaginable scale. The very same breakthrough that promises to end energy scarcity could also create the most powerful military deterrent the world has ever seen. This high-stakes pursuit of ultimate power by giants has a curious side effect, forcing the smaller, more idealistic innovators to seek backing from sources once considered science fiction. The battle for perpetual motion has now spilled onto the digital town square. Crowdfunding platforms have become a chaotic new front line, a place where idealistic inventors and savvy marketers clash directly for the public's trust and their wallets. Here, small teams with names like Open Source Over Unity present their garage-built prototypes with raw enthusiasm, promising to share the blueprints with the world. They compete for attention against sleek, venture-backed campaigns that feel more like corporate product launches, complete with polished animations and celebrity endorsements. This creates a fundamental tension between grassroots idealism and professional marketing, a rivalry over the very soul of innovation. On one side, you have skeptical backers who act as a distributed intelligence network, meticulously analyzing every frame of a demonstration video, questioning power cord placements, and running complex calculations in the comments. On the other, true believers pour their life savings into a project based not on data sheets, but on a compelling story of liberation from the energy grid. No story captures the promise and peril of this space better than the saga of the Flux Drive. It was a campaign that seemed to have it all: a charismatic lead inventor, a working prototype that defied initial scrutiny, and a vision so powerful it raised millions of dollars from tens of thousands of hopeful backers. The updates were frequent and thrilling at first, showing apparent progress and ever more ambitious goals. Then they began to slow. Excuses about supply chain issues and minor technical setbacks turned into long silences. Finally, the lead inventor and the entire Flux Drive team vanished, their website going dark and all communication ceasing. The money was gone, leaving behind a community fractured between those who felt betrayed and a hardened core of supporters who spun elaborate conspiracy theories, claiming their hero had been silenced by powerful oil interests or kidnapped by a shadowy government agency. This is the double-edged sword of democratized funding. It can bypass slow, traditional gatekeepers and accelerate wild ideas that no boardroom would ever approve. But it has also created a modern-day Wild West, a landscape with little to no accountability where hype can eclipse truth and the line between visionary and fraud becomes dangerously blurred. The legal system, built for a slower era of commerce, is now scrambling to catch up, trying to write rules for a technological revolution that moves at the speed of the internet. This global labyrinth of intellectual property has turned patent law into a blood sport for physicists. Law firms now employ their own armies of PhDs, not to build these devices, but to wage war in windowless courtrooms over who owns the idea of forever. Their weapons are not equations, but legal briefs filled with terms like asymmetric electromagnetic thrusters and self-sustaining harmonic oscillators. These patents are intentionally broad, vague, and overlapping, creating an impenetrable thicket of claims designed not just to protect an invention, but to strangle a rival's progress in its cradle. The rivalry between these legal teams is every bit as fierce as the scientific competition they serve, a high-stakes game where a single loophole found in a decades-old ruling can invalidate a competitor's entire research portfolio and sink a company worth billions. At the heart of this legal storm is a landmark case, Nova Energies versus the Global Patent Office. The case does not argue over a specific device, but challenges the very foundation of international patent law, the long-standing prohibition against granting patents for perpetual motion machines. Nova Energies is arguing that their drive is not perpetual in the classical sense, but a sophisticated energy converter that taps into a previously unrecognized ambient source. If they win, the legal floodgates would open, triggering a gold rush for intellectual property that would redefine the entire field. But these battles come with a massive hidden cost. Progress is measured not in scientific breakthroughs, but in legal victories, and brilliant minds who should be in the laboratory are instead trapped in endless depositions, their creativity channeled into fighting legal battles that can tie up research for a decade or more. This paralyzing legal gridlock has, ironically, given rise to a new and deeply secretive form of collaboration. Yet the most intense rivals sometimes discover their goals are not so different after all. Behind the scenes of public feuds and corporate espionage, a secret pact has taken shape. They call themselves the Alexandria Collective, a name that evokes a lost repository of knowledge, and its members are the unlikeliest of allies. This group includes senior researchers from Ether Dynamics and Omnicore Technologies, bitter corporate enemies, alongside a high-level project lead from DRPA's own Project Chimera. Bound by a shared frustration, they have come to a dangerous realization. The fundamental barriers to a perpetual drive are so immense that no single entity, no matter how well funded, can overcome them alone. Their meetings are exercises in extreme caution, arranged in neutral locations like anonymous Zurich conference rooms or private research vessels in international waters. The rules are strict: no proprietary data, no classified schematics, nothing that could be traced back to a specific corporate or government program. Instead, they share only pure theory, the foundational mathematics and physics that underpin their collective roadblocks. Their primary focus has been the maddening problem of quantum decoherence in closed energy loops, a phenomenon where the orderly quantum states needed to harvest energy from the vacuum collapse into useless chaos almost instantly. For years, each company and agency had been attacking this same wall with their own private hammer, making no progress. But by pooling their theoretical insights, the collective has begun to see faint cracks appear. They trade ideas on stabilizing these fragile quantum states, discussing abstract concepts and failed approaches with a candor that would be unthinkable in their day jobs. The risk they face is absolute. For every member, discovery would mean immediate termination, the irrevocable loss of their professional reputation, and potentially charges of treason or industrial espionage. They live with the constant fear of a misplaced email, a betrayed confidence, or the ever-present gaze of corporate and state surveillance. So why do they do it? They justify this dangerous collaboration with a stark moral calculus, the belief that the problem itself is a greater enemy than their corporate or national rivals. They argue that the quest for limitless energy is a human endeavor, one that transcends stock prices and strategic advantage. This secret alliance proves that even in a landscape defined by cutthroat competition, the desire for a world-changing breakthrough can forge the most fragile and powerful of bonds, a conspiracy not for profit but for progress. This open-source insurgency thrives on a currency of transparency and shared frustration. While corporate labs guard their secrets behind legal fortresses, collectives like the Free Energy Foundation operate in the digital sunlight, publishing every experiment, every schematic, and every humiliating failure for the entire world to see. Their philosophy is a direct challenge to the established order, arguing that you cannot solve a problem as monumental as perpetual motion in isolated, profit-driven silos. They are a global network of volunteer engineers, programmers, and physicists, connected not by paychecks but by a shared belief. Their research and development process is radically decentralized, leveraging the unused processing power of thousands of personal computers around the world to run complex simulations, a distributed supercomputer funded by nothing but goodwill. Peer review is not done by a handful of anonymous journal editors, but by a live, crowdsourced community that picks apart every line of code and every data point in real time. Their most stunning achievement to date was a masterstroke of collective intelligence. A leaked, heavily redacted patent from Omnicore hinted at a novel magnetic shielding component, a piece of the puzzle the corporation had spent millions to develop. The open-source community descended on the documents, and in a matter of weeks, a team spread across 4 continents had not only decoded the underlying principle, but had engineered a more efficient and far cheaper version. They then published the complete designs online for anyone to build, a digital gauntlet thrown at the feet of a corporate giant. This is more than a technical rivalry, it is a fundamental clash of ideologies. Is limitless energy the ultimate commodity, a product to be owned, sold, and controlled? Or is it a human right, a foundational technology that should belong to all of humanity? The battle is waged with code commits and forum posts, but its consequences are spilling into the physical world, creating a new, tangible frontier for this eternal conflict. The digital battlefield of open-source idealism has a physical counterpart, a new global race where nations are the primary competitors. This pursuit of a perpetual motion drive has become the ultimate symbol of national prestige, igniting a modern-day space race with stakes that dwarf the original. The United States, China, and the European Union are no longer merely funding research. They are launching entire state-sponsored initiatives, pouring billions into flagship programs with names designed to inspire and intimidate. The most intense rivalry burns between the United States' Artemis Drive initiative and China's Jade Rabbit project. For both superpowers, mastery of this technology is not just about scientific achievement. It is viewed as the single most important key to global economic and military dominance for the next century. The nation that cracks perpetual motion first will not only power its cities for free, but will command a fleet of aircraft and naval vessels with unlimited range, fundamentally reshaping the global balance of power. This competition is no longer confined to laboratory simulations. It plays out in the silent, airless vacuum of space, with both nations conducting a series of competing satellite launches. These are not communication or observation satellites, but highly classified testbeds designed to validate critical drive components in the zero-gravity environment where they must ultimately function. The diplomatic arena is just as active and ruthless. A quiet, global scramble is underway to secure exclusive, long-term contracts for the rare earth minerals essential to building the advanced magnets and superconductors in current prototypes. Chinese corporations, often with state backing, have spent years strategically acquiring mining rights across Africa and South America, creating a near monopoly on key elements like neodymium and dysprosium. In response, the Artemis Drive initiative is aggressively promoting investment in deep-sea mining ventures and even asteroid prospecting companies, desperate to break this stranglehold on the physical building blocks of the future. This fierce competition over resources forces a profound and uncomfortable question. Are we simply building a new, even more absolute form of power dependency, trading one scarce resource for another? The fear that fuels this entire geopolitical standoff is palpable, a Cold War-style tension that permeates every scientific conference and diplomatic meeting. The assumption is that whichever nation achieves the breakthrough first will wield it not as a gift to humanity, but as the ultimate strategic weapon, creating an energy gap so vast that no other country could ever hope to close it. This global struggle for the ultimate power source is quietly transforming the planet's economy, creating a shadow market where the price of progress is measured in secrets and betrayal. The theoretical breakthroughs and legal battles mean nothing without the physical stuff to build with. A brutal, hidden war is being fought not in laboratories, but in remote mines and on the ocean floor, a desperate hunt for the exotic materials these drives demand. The entire enterprise hinges on a handful of rare elements, each with almost magical properties. High-purity lutetium, for instance, acts as a near-perfect catalyst in certain reaction chambers, while specific, hard-to-produce isotopes of bismuth are essential for stabilizing the quantum fields everyone is trying to create. Securing a steady supply of these substances has become a corporate obsession, sparking rivalries between mining giants that dwarf any academic feud. The bidding wars are legendary, with fortunes exchanged for exclusive rights to a single mine in Greenland or a plot on the deep seabed, where robotic submarines now scour hydrothermal vents for precious ore nodules. This frantic scramble has birthed a secondary, equally fierce rivalry between two distinct philosophical camps. On one side are the teams who believe the answer lies in nature's own perfection, in finding and refining these rare earth elements to an impossible degree of purity. Their opponents argue that nature is not enough. They are the pioneers of synthetic metamaterials, engineering substances atom by atom in nanofabrication labs to create structures that do not exist anywhere in the natural world. These custom-built materials could theoretically exhibit zero electrical resistance or perfect energy reflectivity, properties that would make a perpetual drive suddenly feasible. This creates a stark divide, a race within the race. One group is scouring the planet for its hidden treasures, while the other is trying to invent new treasures altogether. The group that solves this fundamental material science puzzle may very well win the entire race by default. The most elegant theoretical model in the world is useless if you cannot physically construct the machine. This brutal resource war underscores a profound and limiting truth. True innovation is shackled by the very building blocks of our planet. We are hitting the physical limits of Earth itself, a reality that is now forcing the most ambitious architects of the future to lift their gaze from the ground and look toward the stars. Earth's gravity has become the ultimate cage for testing these revolutionary devices. To escape its limitations, the great rivalry has blasted into the final frontier, turning low Earth orbit into a private laboratory for hire. The primary players in this new arena are private space companies, with SpaceX's Starship deployments openly competing with a highly secretive venture known only as Orion Forge. Their business is not just reaching space, but leasing premium testing real estate on their commercial space stations and specialized lunar orbiters. The ultimate prize for any research team is to conduct the first stable, long-duration test of a drive prototype in true microgravity. A successful 30-day experiment in orbit would generate a flood of performance data that is simply impossible to collect on Earth, where every result is distorted by our planet's relentless pull. This has ignited a space race tucked neatly inside the larger space race. Companies are now designing and launching completely automated, self-contained laboratories, small modules packed with sensitive instrumentation that can be attached to commercial satellites. These labs operate remotely for months, running experiments and beaming data back to Earth without a single human touch. The competition for these orbital slots is so intense that it has created a new form of corporate sabotage. Securing a launch window on a specific rocket is a logistical nightmare, and rumors persist of rival companies quietly paying premiums to shift a competitor's experiment to a later, less desirable flight, costing them precious months and millions in funding. The company that achieves a stable orbital test will not just win a dataset, it will achieve a level of validation that could instantly vaporize the credibility and funding of every Earthbound competitor. This forces us to confront a profound shift. The very laws of physics might behave differently when untethered from our planetary well, meaning the winner of this race might be the first to rewrite the textbooks entirely. The deepest rivalry in this race is not between corporations, but between two competing visions of reality. At the most fundamental level, the battle is between string theory and loop quantum gravity, and their proponents wage a philosophical war over the very blueprint for a perpetual drive. String theorists envision a universe composed of unimaginably tiny, vibrating strings, and they propose that the key to limitless energy lies in accessing the extra dimensions these strings supposedly require. Their theoretical drive would manipulate these hidden dimensions to draw power from the cosmic background. In the opposite corner, advocates of loop quantum gravity see a universe woven from a fabric of discrete, finite loops. Their approach is to rewire spacetime itself at the smallest possible scale, the Planck length, essentially reprogramming the underlying code of the universe to allow for continuous energy creation. The conflict between these camps is deeply personal. fought in the pages of peer-reviewed journals with a bitterness that equations alone cannot conceal. A string theorist might dismiss loop quantum gravity as a crude cartoon of physics, while a loop quantum gravity proponent will accuse string theory of being untestable mathematical fantasy. This is not merely academic squabbling. The chosen theoretical path has staggering real-world consequences, dictating which multi-billion-dollar experiments receive funding. A government panel swayed by the elegance of string theory might finance a massive new particle collider designed to detect evidence of extra dimensions, while a foundation convinced by loop quantum gravity could pour an equal fortune into ultra-precise measurements of spacetime foam. Billions of dollars and the careers of thousands of researchers hinge on which abstract mathematical framework a handful of powerful academics find more beautiful. This means the ultimate direction of human technology is being decided not by proven engineering, but by a battle of ideas, a contest where empirical proof lags decades behind theoretical conviction. The human cost of this high-stakes theoretical battle is a story rarely told, a quiet toll of broken careers and abandoned research paths hidden behind the polished facade of scientific progress. The relentless drive for an impossible breakthrough is shattering the very minds pursuing it. We hear the triumphant announcements and witness the polished patent filings, but we never see the human wreckage left behind in silent laboratories at 3 in the morning. This is a burnout epidemic, the unspoken crisis crippling the race for perpetual motion. The pressure is a physical force, an unyielding weight compounded by absolute secrecy, and the haunting fear that your entire life's work might be built upon a fundamental error in reasoning. Anonymous testimonials from engineers tell a chillingly consistent story of 80-hour work weeks that become the norm, of missed birthdays and disintegrating families, all sacrificed on the altar of a potential breakthrough that never seems to arrive. The psychological toll is unique to this field, where the goal itself is considered impossible by mainstream science. Researchers speak of a creeping dissonance, a feeling of intellectual isolation that slowly erodes their confidence and mental stability. They are working in the dark, terrified that a competitor might publish first, or worse, that their own project will be abruptly cancelled after years of their life have been poured into it. This environment has created a secondary, critical rivalry between competing corporate philosophies. On one side are the old guard institutions and certain private firms that operate like intellectual sweatshops, pushing their teams to the brink with relentless deadlines and a publish or perish mentality imported from the most toxic academic environments. They believe that genius is forged in the fire of extreme pressure. Their emerging rivals, a new wave of research collectives and a few forward-thinking corporations, are betting on a different model. They actively prioritize sustainable innovation, mandating sabbaticals, providing mental health support, and arguing that a well-rested, balanced researcher is infinitely more creative and productive than a burned-out shell. They are competing to prove which culture truly fosters breakthrough science. The stories of collapse are the legends whispered in this community. They tell of a brilliant lead physicist at a top-tier lab who simply walked away one day, leaving a half-finished equation on his whiteboard and vanishing from the industry forever. They speak of a young prodigy whose promising theory was ridiculed into obscurity at a major conference, leading to a complete mental breakdown from which she never recovered. These are not just career setbacks, they are personal tragedies. The pursuit of infinite energy is consuming a finite resource, the human spirit itself, leaving a trail of broken dreamers in its wake. This immense pressure to succeed at any cost does not just break people, it corrupts them, pushing even the most ethical minds toward a single, terrifying question: how far would you go to win? The pressure to deliver results has pushed some to cross an invisible ethical line, creating a new and deeply personal conflict from within. The most dangerous secrets are not those stolen by rival corporations, but those revealed by the very people who helped create them. A silent war is now being waged between powerful organizations and their own conscience-stricken employees, a battle where the weapon is the truth. These whistleblowers have become pivotal figures, risking everything to expose what happens behind the sealed laboratory doors. The most famous case centers on Dr. Kenji Sato, a former lead engineer at Omnicore Technologies. For years, he was a true believer, dedicating his life to the Helios initiative. But as the data mounted, a troubling pattern emerged. Internal tests consistently showed their prototype drive losing significant energy, but only when accounting for every environmental variable, from minute thermal fluctuations to electromagnetic interference from the lab's own wiring. The official reports, however, always omitted these inconvenient details, presenting a sanitized version of progress to the board and to investors. Sato could not remain silent. He published the complete, damning internal report online, a document that laid bare the systematic data manipulation. Overnight, he became a hero to the public and a traitor to his former colleagues. The legal and media firestorm was instantaneous. Omnicore filed a devastating lawsuit against him, alleging theft of intellectual property and breach of contract, a legal assault designed to bankrupt him and shatter his credibility. Yet, his actions forced a complete strategic pivot at the company, which suddenly announced a major recalibration of its research focus. These whistleblowers embody the ultimate conflict between corporate loyalty and the unyielding demands of scientific truth. They are forced to make an impossible choice: to remain complicit in a deception or to torch their own careers and face financial ruin. Their revelations force us all to ask a difficult question. In a race built on secrecy and hype, who can we really trust? The fallout from a single leak can be more destructive than any corporate espionage, because it erodes the very foundation of belief that these projects are built upon. The human mind can only hold so many variables at once, a limitation that has become the new bottleneck in this race. The most brilliant physicists have hit a wall of complexity, unable to mentally model the chaotic interplay of quantum states and gravitational fields within a theoretical drive. In response, the rival factions have pivoted to a new kind of arms race, one fought not with materials but with algorithms. They are in a desperate competition to build the most advanced artificial intelligence, a digital oracle capable of simulating realities too strange for human intuition. This new battlefield is the data center, where processing power has become the ultimate currency of innovation. On one side stands Google's DeepMind team, applying its world champion game-playing algorithms to the ultimate puzzle. Their AI is a monolithic digital brain trained on petabytes of physics data, searching for patterns no human would ever see. Its primary rival emerges from a radically different philosophy, an open-source consortium that has hacked and modified existing large language models, transforming them into physics engines that learn from a distributed library of every published experiment and failed prototype. The ultimate goal for both is deceptively simple: to be the first to create an AI that can accurately simulate a stable, closed energy loop. Such a digital breakthrough would grant its creators a potentially insurmountable advantage. Imagine testing 1,000,000 subtly different virtual drive designs in the time it takes a human engineering team to physically construct and test a single, flawed prototype. The AI does not get tired, it does not suffer from confirmation bias, and it can explore dead ends at the speed of light without wasting a single gram of exotic minerals. This is more than just a powerful tool. The AI is effectively becoming a primary competitor in the race, a non-human intelligence whose discoveries could dwarf everything that has come before. The group that successfully trains this digital genius will not just be running simulations, they will be mining a universe of pure mathematics for a secret that has eluded us for centuries. Yet, as these digital minds chart a course through theoretical space, their potential for autonomous discovery raises a question that echoes far beyond the server farms. Yet the promise of infinite energy is not a dream that everyone shares. A powerful and deeply skeptical grassroots movement has risen in direct opposition to the entire endeavor. They call themselves the stewards of equilibrium, and their rivalry with the research community is not about technical details, but about the very soul of our future. Their core argument is stark and simple. Unleashing such a power source would be an act of profound and irreversible folly. They envision a cascade of disasters, beginning with the instantaneous collapse of the global economy. Imagine the entire energy sector, from oil giants to solar farms, rendered completely obsolete overnight. The resulting unemployment and financial chaos would dwarf any historical depression. Then there is the inevitable weaponization. A drive that could power a city could also power a laser that never stops firing or a drone that never needs to land. In the wrong hands, it would be the ultimate instrument of domination. But their deepest fear is ecological, a concern that tampering with the fundamental forces of physics could have unforeseen consequences we cannot even model. What if harvesting zero-point energy subtly cools the quantum vacuum? What if a stable gravitational field manipulation permanently alters the local fabric of spacetime? We are, they argue, children playing with a cosmic fire we do not understand. This movement is not a fringe group. It is a coalition of respected environmental activists, Nobel-winning economists, and prominent philosophers, all lending their voices to a single demand for a preemptive, global ban on perpetual motion research. They stage peaceful but disruptive protests outside laboratories, lobby governments with sophisticated white papers on the risks, and create powerful counter-narratives that frame the scientists not as heroes, but as modern-day versions of the architects of the atomic bomb, blinded by the thrill of discovery to the horrors they might unleash. This adds a complex new layer of social and political pressure that every technical rival must now navigate. A brilliant proof of concept means nothing if the public and their elected representatives are terrified of its existence. The dream of infinite energy is now facing a potent rebellion from those who fear the dream itself, a conflict that is rapidly shaping the regulatory landscape and forcing a question the researchers never wanted to answer: not just can we build it, but should we? This chaotic clash of ideals has now reached the halls of power. Governments around the world are locked in a frantic, high-stakes rivalry to build a legal cage for a technology that, by its very definition, refuses to be contained. The European Union has thrown its weight behind the precautionary principle, a regulatory philosophy that demands absolute, undeniable proof of safety before a single prototype can be powered up for public testing. Their approach is one of extreme caution, treating every new drive design as a potential existential threat until proven otherwise. It is a fortress of regulations designed to keep danger out, but which also risks locking progress within. This stands in stark opposition to the United States Innovation First model, which champions a Silicon Valley-style ethos of rapid iteration. This framework favors minimal oversight, allowing companies to test and fail quickly, with the belief that the risks of moving too slowly far outweigh the risks of a contained accident. This fundamental regulatory schism is more than a bureaucratic debate. It is actively creating new geopolitical borders. Nations with looser, innovation-friendly laws are rapidly becoming energy havens, attracting billions in research dollars and the brightest minds, while countries with stricter rules watch their own scientific talent emigrate to these new zones of opportunity. The battle to write the rulebook has turned capital cities into lobbying war zones. Corridors in Brussels and Washington are flooded with advocates from every faction you have encountered. Corporate lobbyists from Ether and Omnicore push for intellectual property protections that would strangle open-source projects. Academic consortia argue for special research exemptions, while activists from the Stewards of Equilibrium demand preemptive bans, their protests echoing outside the very buildings where these decisions are made. In response to this global patchwork, there have been calls for a single, international regulatory body, a kind of United Nations for perpetual motion. But every proposal has been immediately stalled and sabotaged by the same national rivalries and corporate interests that fuel the technological race. No superpower wants to cede control of the future to an international committee they cannot dominate. The result is a world where the rules are being written while the game is already in furious play. This legal limbo is a landscape of both paralyzing risk and unprecedented opportunity. For a young startup, it means navigating a minefield of contradictory national laws, where a perfectly legal experiment in one country could lead to criminal charges in another. Yet for the clever and the bold, this uncertainty is a shield. They can exploit the gaps between jurisdictions, pushing the boundaries of what is possible in the gray areas of international law, forever staying one step ahead of the regulators struggling to catch up. The university workshop floor hums with a different kind of energy, a blend of youthful optimism and fierce, focused competition. Prestigious international contests like the Maxwell Innovation Prize have become the primary incubators for the next phase of this global rivalry, transforming abstract theories into tangible, whirring prototypes built by student hands. These events are far more than academic exercises. They are high-stakes recruiting grounds where scouts from Ether Dynamics, Omnicore, and even shadowy government programs linger on the sidelines, offering internships and lavish job contracts to the most promising young engineers. The intense rivalry between a team from Caltech and their counterparts from Tsinghua University is a perfect, pressurized microcosm of the larger geopolitical struggle. It is not just about winning a trophy, it is about proving the superiority of an educational system, a national approach to innovation, and a vision for the future. The friendships forged in these all-night coding sessions and the grudges born from 0.1% efficiency difference are not left in the lecture hall. They are carried directly into the corporate and state labs, ensuring the personal vendettas and ideological battles we see today are inherited and amplified by the next generation. The future landscape of this race, with its shifting alliances and bitter conflicts, is being drafted on whiteboards in university workshops today. These students are not just building drive components, they are building the personal networks and rivalries that will dictate the course of this technology for the next 50 years. The most bitter enemies in this race have just declared a temporary peace. A new and far more dangerous player has emerged from the shadows, a predatory entity known only as the Carthage Group. This organization operates with a chilling lack of restraint, employing tactics that go far beyond corporate espionage into the realm of outright intellectual property theft and corporate raiding. Their strategy is brutally simple: identify the most promising perpetual motion research and acquire it by any means necessary. Faced with this existential threat, the unthinkable happened. Ether Dynamics and Omnicore Technologies, arch-rivals who have spent years trying to sabotage each other, entered into a secret, unprecedented information-sharing pact. It was not built on trust, but on a shared and desperate need for survival. This fragile alliance allowed them to create a joint defensive network, a digital early warning system to alert each other to Carthage's signature cyber incursion attempts. They even began sharing encrypted dossiers on known Carthage operatives, individuals who had tried to infiltrate both of their organizations under different guises. This uneasy truce reveals a profound truth about the entire technological landscape. The rivalries are not set in stone. They form a complex, shifting web where allegiances can be rewritten overnight when a common enemy threatens to devour all the players. The race is no longer just about who can innovate the fastest. It has become a desperate game of defense, of building walls high enough to protect your most precious ideas from a predator that recognizes no rules. This sudden cooperation between giants forces us to wonder, if Ether and Omnicore had to band together, just how many other shadowy entities are already operating in the darkness, waiting for their moment to strike. This shadow war of secrets and corporate alliances has birthed a sprawling digital underworld of pure speculation. In the dimly lit forums and encrypted chat rooms where this race is debated by millions, the official narrative holds no power. Here, a vibrant and populist rivalry thrives, pitting the collective imagination of the public against the guarded gates of the scientific establishment. The most persistent theory claims a working perpetual motion drive was perfected decades ago. Its suppression, the story goes, is the life's work of a global cabal of oil conglomerates and their political puppets, who orchestrate everything from laboratory accidents to character assassinations to keep their trillion-dollar empire afloat. Another, even more fantastical narrative suggests the entire endeavor is a charade. According to this belief, the core technology is not being invented, but reverse-engineered from recovered non-human craft, with agencies like DRRP a slowly drip feeding these alien physics into the public domain to avoid causing mass panic. While mainstream scientists dismiss these ideas as laughable, their cultural impact is undeniable and profound. These conspiracy theories have become a powerful force, directly shaping the real-world race. They influence congressional hearings on research funding, with skeptical lawmakers often echoing online talking points about wasted taxpayer money on a solved problem. They attract a specific type of unconventional talent to the field, brilliant autodidacts and rogue engineers who are first inspired not by academic journals, but by a compelling YouTube video about hidden technology. Most surprisingly, this chaotic, crowd-sourced scrutiny occasionally pays dividends. The obsessive frame-by-frame analysis of a corporate demonstration video by amateur sleuths once uncovered a previously unnoticed reflection, a hidden power cable that the company had desperately tried to conceal. This public shaming forced a retraction and shifted millions in investment. The line between a fringe theory and a radical but valid hypothesis is often vanishingly thin. History is filled with ideas once deemed heretical that later formed the bedrock of new science. This parallel universe of speculation, for all its noise and nonsense, acts as a constant, chaotic peer review, a cultural phenomenon that ensures no claim, no matter how authoritative, goes entirely unquestioned. The greatest breakthroughs often begin as whispers on the fringe, forcing us to wonder what signal might be hiding in all that noise. The grand battles for supremacy often obscure the daily war of inches being fought in laboratories across the globe. For every headline-grabbing rivalry, there are 1,000 smaller, more intimate conflicts over a single percentage point of efficiency or a handful of extra milliseconds. The true heartbeat of this race is not the explosive public announcement, but the quiet, frantic competition to publish a minor advance before a rival team halfway across the world does the same. Securing priority for a tiny breakthrough is the difference between a renewed grant and a shuttered laboratory. Consider the fierce struggle to develop a room-temperature superconductor. A gain of just 1% in efficiency is not a footnote. It is a monumental achievement that can trigger a cascade of new experiments and attract millions in fresh investment. Similarly, extending the stable operation of a volatile plasma containment field from 100 milliseconds to 103 is a victory celebrated with champagne. These are the incremental gains that keep the entire field moving forward, each one a hard-fought step in a seemingly endless marathon. The story of a small university lab in Norway perfectly illustrates this dynamic. Operating with a fraction of the budget of their corporate rivals, the team was studying a common ceramic compound when they observed an anomalous reading. After months of painstaking work, they identified a previously unknown crystal lattice structure that, when applied to a drive's containment vessel, reduced parasitic energy leakage by a remarkable 7%. It was a discovery born not of limitless funds, but of pure, stubborn curiosity. Their triumphant paper was published in a minor journal, but its impact was immediate and explosive. Within 72 hours, 3 separate corporate labs from different continents had issued formal challenges. One claimed the Norwegian data fell within an acceptable margin of error. Another argued their own proprietary research, still under patent review, had hinted at a similar structure years prior. The third simply stated they could not replicate the results, a devastating critique in the scientific world. The small lab was suddenly thrust into a global dispute, their credibility and their future funding hanging in the balance over a microscopic arrangement of atoms. This is the relentless pressure that defines the daily grind of this race. Every single step is a sprint, every minor innovation a potential target. Yet without these countless contested advances, the revolutionary leap would remain nothing more than a distant fantasy. The building blocks of forever are being laid, one agonizingly small victory at a time. A shattered beaker of liquid crystal was the catalyst for the entire third wave of research. In a cluttered university lab in Byrne, a frustrated graduate student accidentally knocked a high-frequency emitter into his experimental drive assembly. The resulting data spike should have represented a catastrophic failure, but instead it showed a perfect, sustained energy curve for nearly 3 full seconds, an eternity in this field. The unexpected harmonic frequency had somehow coaxed the quantum field into a state of temporary, breathtaking stability. Dubbed the Byrne Anomaly, this lucky accident instantly rendered years of targeted research obsolete. The news spread through back channels in a matter of days, sparking a global frenzy of reverse engineering. Corporate labs from Palo Alto to Shanghai scrambled to recreate the exact conditions of that fortunate spill, desperately trying to bottle a moment of pure chance. Teams that had been bitter rivals for a decade now found themselves in a frantic foot race to understand a phenomenon that no one had intentionally designed. This single event highlights a profound and humbling truth about the nature of discovery. You can pour billions of dollars into a problem and assemble the most brilliant minds on the planet, but you cannot schedule a breakthrough. The most elegant theories often crumble before a single, inconvenient, and wonderfully random piece of data. It is the ultimate wild card, a force that democratizes innovation by reminding everyone that the next great leap could come from a clumsy mistake in a garage or an overlooked result in a forgotten data set. The key is not just to be lucky, but to be prepared to recognize that luck when it strikes. This element of beautiful unpredictability is what keeps the final outcome perpetually in doubt, forever dangling the prize just beyond the reach of the most powerful and well-funded contenders. So as this decades-long race barrels toward its uncertain conclusion, we are forced to confront the most difficult question of all. In a contest defined by such chaos, such rivalry, and such sheer dumb luck, what does victory even look like? Even the most elegant prototype is meaningless without a clear definition of what it is supposed to do. The ultimate and most profound rivalry is not over a machine, but over the very definition of victory itself. What exactly constitutes a true perpetual motion drive? Is success a system that hums along for a single human lifetime, outliving its creator? Or must it run for 1,000 years, a silent monument to its own perfection? Perhaps the goal is not true isolation, but a device that simply harvests more energy than it consumes from a source we have not yet learned to measure. This is not a minor technicality. It is a philosophical war that has splintered the entire field into two hostile camps. On one side stand the purists, the intellectual descendants of the original dreamers. They demand a system in perfect hermetic isolation, a machine that runs in a box shielded from all known energy fields, proving its worth through utter self-containment. For them, any connection to the outside universe, however subtle, is a form of cheating. Their rivals, the pragmatists, argue that this is an impossible and pointless standard. They contend that the quantum vacuum is not empty but a seething sea of potential energy. They see gravity not as a limitation but as a constant universal power source. For the pragmatists, a drive that intelligently taps into these cosmic gradients is not a failure. It is the ultimate form of perpetual motion, a clever partnership with the universe itself. This fundamental disagreement dictates everything. It determines the goals of a research program, the metrics used to measure success, and the ultimate legacy of whoever finally claims the prize. A purist victory would be a quiet, philosophical revolution, a machine that operates outside the universe as we understand it. A pragmatist victory would be a loud, practical one, a device that rewires our relationship with the cosmos. The rivalry to define the finish line is every bit as intense as the race to cross it, because the final legacy will be written not just by the one who builds the machine, but by the story they tell about how it works. The final design of the perpetual motion drive will be a permanent monument to the battles that forged it. Every component, every line of code, will carry the invisible scars of the corporate espionage, the academic sabotage, and the personal vendettas that defined its creation. The technology's very architecture will be a frozen history of conflict. If omni-core's philosophy wins, the drive may be a fortress of proprietary black boxes, its inner workings sealed to prevent the very industrial theft that nearly destroyed their program. If the open-source movement prevails, its design will be a patchwork of collaboratively solved puzzles, a testament to distributed ingenuity. The rivalries are not external to the machine, they are the blueprint from which it is being built. The question of who wins is therefore inseparable from the question of what they have won. A drive born from the shadowy laboratories of a private military contractor will be fundamentally different from one born in a university lab funded by public grants. One is engineered for control and strategic advantage, the other for validation and shared knowledge. The human flaws and competitive fires of its creators will be encoded into its operational logic, a ghost in the machine that will long outlive the people who built it. This means the ultimate legacy of limitless energy is not predetermined by physics, but by the messy human drama of its invention. The final chapter of this story is a choice that extends far beyond the laboratory walls. It is a choice about what kind of future we want to build with this awesome power. Will we use it to erect higher walls, creating an unbridgeable chasm between the energy-rich and the energy-poor? Or will we choose to dismantle the old structures of scarcity altogether, forging a new era of global cooperation. The rivalries have given us the tool, but the responsibility for its use now falls to all of us. Our collective voice, our demands for transparency and equity, will be the final and most important competition, the one that decides whether this technology becomes humanity's greatest triumph or its most absolute cage. The final design of the Perpetual motion drive will be a permanent monument to the battles that forged it. Every component, every line of code will carry the invisible scars of the corporate espionage, the academic sabotage, and the personal vendettas that defined its creation. The technology's very architecture will be a frozen history of conflict. If omni-core's philosophy wins, the drive may be a fortress of proprietary black boxes, its inner workings sealed to prevent the very industrial theft that nearly destroyed their program. If the open-source movement prevails, its design will be a patchwork of collaboratively solved puzzles, a testament to distributed ingenuity. The rivalries are not external to the machine, they are the blueprint from which it is being built. The question of who wins is therefore inseparable from the question of what they have won. A drive born from the shadowy laboratories of a private military contractor will be fundamentally different from one born in a university lab funded by public grants. One is engineered for control and strategic advantage, the other for validation and shared knowledge. The human flaws and competitive fires of its creators will be encoded into its operational logic, a ghost in the machine that will long outlive the people who built it. This means the ultimate legacy of limitless energy is not predetermined by physics, but by the messy human drama of its invention. The final chapter of this story is a choice that extends far beyond the laboratory walls. It is a choice about what kind of future we want to build with this awesome power. Will we use it to erect higher walls, creating an unbridgeable chasm between the energy-rich and the energy-poor? Or will we choose to dismantle the old structures of scarcity altogether, forging a new era of global cooperation? The rivalries have given us the tool, but the responsibility for its use now falls to all of us. Our collective voice, our demands for transparency and equity, will be the final and most important competition, the one that decides whether this technology becomes humanity's greatest triumph or its most absolute cage.